So today I will bring some questions which were made by a Portuguese seeker that I think it will bring something useful. But before that, uh, I, I will present a little bit of reflection. So what is a seeker of truth? Is a seeker of truth someone who is living a life in spiritual with spiritual things like spiritual disciplines and mingling around spiritual people? Is this a seeker of truth? Someone who has spiritual practices? Is this what makes a spiritual, a seeker of truth? Well, if we look at the ancient stories, the Puranas, you will find different stories, and some of them speak about demons performing spiritual practices, intense spiritual practices, so intense that because of those practices, Brahma himself had to come down to this world to give the boons that he was looking for. And was that demon a seeker of truth? No, he was a seeker of power. So in a sense, this exemplifies when the quest for truth, the spiritual investment is about self-importance and is devoid of the important factors that makes it a spiritual quest. See? So appearances, they mean nothing. Everybody may seem to be doing the same thing, but what they are really looking for, that is what makes the distinction. So these forces, demons and deities, uh, in other periods of time were more close, uh, were more visible. These days, they are not so visible, but they are still there. See, everybody knows this when they are in difficulties, really intense difficulties, enough for them to cry for help, to leave their small castles and cry for help. And for the majority, they see that help comes from somewhere. It's not seen, but from somewhere. And in the same way, these forces that are inside, inner forces, subtle forces, let's put it this way, they are also external forces, apparently. And there are those who are for to help seekers of truth, others to make difficulties for their undertakings. It is there. But these stories from the Puranas, they are very educating because they show how these forces operate. You see, when demons were in power, what they did was to destroy all kinds of sincere efforts from seekers. They would go after ashrams, after spiritual seekers, they would stop their prayers, they would end these things because this would create an energy that would increase the power of the deities, and so it would increase the power they had to help. By the other way around, this would decrease the power of the demons and their proliferation, their success, and all of these things would come down. So if we look at the story of the seeker of truth through time, what has been the trajectory of this quest? So this inner restlessness, that when today it's inner restlessness, before it wasn't, because in other times it was clear, this seeker of truth path, what was a seeker of truth, this life of contemplation, of the quest for the divine. And there were fears among the society of people leaving to dedicate themselves to this because they would leave everything behind. So this story of the seeker moving out from his environment, going to find uh, first teachings, then guidance, or everything at the same time. It depended from each story. This was a normal story. Now let's look at these days, how this story is. And you will see that by a lot of means, this has become broken. Hmm? The seeker of truth, even seekers of truth, yes, they are not yet, as they haven't moved from this, but they have the potential. Uh, they already dismiss a lot of these things as nonsense, and they have justifications for it. But where did it start it and why? Hmm? These are questions that all of you can ask. But chain, this chain that would guarantee uh, a step by step, this has been broken. So looking around to you at the world that you see, what type of forces do you think are operating in in the most intense way? So this is a reflection. Um, Now into this is a little bit about the external factors, whatever that means. Now looking at this at an internal perspective. In your quest, in your daily quest, in your daily practices, um, I know there are a lot of you that are into these spiritual practices to become more compassionate. It's good, yes, but it's not good when this is limited to this compassion, and compassion is seen as a means to an end in itself. Like if I'm more compassionate, then people will like me more, I will be more accepted, and things eventually will go the way I think they should go, the way my vision of reality tells me it should go. But there are those, see, that are moving really beyond this circumstances of belonging and all of this. And for those, the question is, are you filling your heart with compassion also? Are you struggling to free yourself from yourself, really? Or are there dreams there still waiting to be accomplished behind all these things? Are you looking for surrender? But is this surrender to an abstract thing? Do you feel like guidance is there and pushing you to to break all these dreams, preferences, and all of this? Or is what you call guidance just a friendly presence that is helping you accomplish what you feel it is right? Is guidance you are receiving, is it a good presence helping you, or is it really breaking your world? You see, different type of seekers have different needs, so these conversations about who needs what, they are useless. So a lot of seekers are going through this compassion, but the majority of this compassion is just about improving their own world, the vision that the world has about themselves. It is about just making the same things that they did before in different environments, doing this in a spiritual environment. Hmm? If I'm good enough, if I appear to be good enough, then the world will give me what I think I need. To come to this vision, it's not like this. It takes time. It takes time, it takes sincerity to see. Because mind is very easy to give excuses, to justify things. Hmm? But it is very simple to see the by your own story as a seeker of truth, by your own story, by your own investments, what are you really looking for? First, you will see that is this divine presence growing inside of you? Hmm? Is your investment completely, completely towards the quest for truth, for liberation, for God realization? Or you're still taking other things along with you, investing in other things? Because if there are other things, then things are not the way you imagine them to be. So for you to see, and these words are not saying that some are good, others are bad. You see, even going back to the Puranas, even demons had gurus and followed disciplines, codes, they had conducts and everything. Eventually, they would be reborn as something more suitable, whatever that means. There's a lot of stories. But the important thing is to clarify, where are you coming from in your quest? Where are you really going to with your quest? Hmm? Looking around at others and see, oh, but they are doing the same thing. This justifies nothing, because only you matter, no one else. You see, others will be doing their own things until their time comes. But are you really, really being honest with what you know in this moment? If there's no guidance, and I'm not talking about these feelings of this and that, guidance, direct, different, that which manifests as different, either through an incarnated master or through inner perceptions, but which is that which is clearly different. Complicated, because it's complicated because also these negative influences, they also manifest innerly for a lot of people. But I will not go into this subject. So all these things, you need to observe them uh, with a critical eye. What is happening inside of you? What are your motivations? Are you also taking care of little life, mundane life? There's no point, and the journey, the epic, the life of the seeker of truth is there also to inspire others. Hmm? It's not by chance these external movements. Doesn't mean it is for all, but in a way, these things have been breaking down. And I know you have a lot of justifications of that. It is true. But are you moving? Are you moving in this quest for truth? Do you feel the divine presence increasing inside of you or not? Because it's what makes the difference. Hmm? You have your efforts been strong enough to be repaid by this presence outside or inside, hmm, like I quoted before, these demons would perform so much intense austerities that Brahma had to come himself. And what is this Brahma coming himself, if not this guidance personified? So have your efforts being strong enough in the right direction so that this guidance would manifest either outside or inside. If you look around to as the world of seekers have become, it will be quite easy to understand what would be the best need for the majority. And the majority would say inner guidance. Well, I will have to disagree on that one because from what is observed, there hasn't been a time where seekers are more closed inside themselves, in their world, guiding their own processes. Nothing against this. These words are for the ones who are sincerely making um, their efforts and for the right reason and are trapped inside their own um, their own, how do you say this, constructions. It is for these ones. So the question that has come was, let's see if I can translate this. So Ramana Maharshi says that realization only becomes effective with the extinction of the vasanas, the tendencies, the limiting tendencies, and only after the extinction of the tendencies of the ego, the mind dies. How do you understand the significance of the death of the mind, which is spoken by Ramana? In which sense does the mind dies? He says that recognition of the real nature is not the liberation. How do you understand this affirmation? So, as I spoken previously, this knowing too much about these subjects, about experiences, what is expected, and all of this, when things are not in its proper place, makes the mind recreate phenomenons that, in the absence of the real experience, they become the real experience. For example, if you haven't ever seen an apple and someone shows you a watermelon, says, this is an apple. You haven't seen a watermelon also. So that will be an apple for you. So these experiences, if you read them and the mind is very anxious to get them because of pride, arrogance, of greed, spiritual greed, and all of this, and it needs this to a lot of things to justify the choices it has made, to make himself be more important near others, spiritual seekers, to have something to speak about, to increase what he believes is his own value. So these experiences, they start to be created as a means to support, sustain, maintain your world of illusion. But for the right reasons and for the wrong reasons, in this moment of more spiritual drought, because it is a spiritual drought, uh, these experiences, they are coming a little bit more easier for the majority. There are some that they don't have any spiritual experience and they get worried because they want them, usually for the wrong reasons, because they want them to, so that they will become something that they can support themselves. Mm. But this is other way around. So not having experiences, spiritual experiences, is not bad, not at all. It's less confusing, but everything comes tailor-made. But again, these experiences are coming and people are talking more often about them. And some are talking about mind creations, others are talking about something which is real, and it has different purposes. So mind creations, they are to maintain your world, and others, they can be used in the same sense. But other experiences are there to tell you that what you're seeing as real, it's not real. But then it's up to you to move to where the experience is pointing. It's not the end in themselves. So I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, but I know who I am because I had this experience. I've seen." But everything else is in the same. So the effective extension of the vasanas, this is very important, because without it, it doesn't change much, whatever that means. And this implies that which is beyond the individual capacity. Mm. So you may be very powerful, but it will always be beyond your scope. Guidance has to be there. Has to be there because in the absence of guidance, you're just doing whatever you think it's best. Even if you're looking around and quoting Ramana Maharshi or Paramahansa Yogananda or whatever, it is you who is choosing what is more suitable for you. And who is this you? Is this the liberated you? Or is this just the fruit of these vasanas? The fruit of these constructions? Constructions which are nature inbuilt. They are nature. They are the forces of nature. They are the forces of delusion. So what you can see by yourself is just a fruit of the apparent existing conditioning. Nothing else. These feelings and these things, they are pretty much in your world. They are something, yes, they are something, but it's almost nothing. It's like you're almost nothing, you see? And it's like moving inside a preconditioned place that it is there to guarantee that you will not move beyond that. So eventually, even with the presence of guidance, you see, inner guidance is something much more intense, as I previously explained, because you have to be really free from a lot of things, a lot of importances, a lot and a lot and a lot. And it will come as a hammer, breaking everything which is dear to you. And this will not be a picnic, a walk in a park. And for this to be there, a lot of devotion has to be inside and a lot of willingness for guidance, as you would be willing or more willing even than to maintain that life, the life of your body. And this, a lot of people think they are at this level, but very few are. and they see this as they are tested, and everything is tested. So if you're not being tested, being pushed through your limits, um, being pushed beyond what you consider your limits, it's it's not there. With outer guidance, with the master, the personified master, it is a little bit more easy, because in a sense, if you go against the guidance of the master, well, he can still take it for a while, give you time for this and everything, and still be there. Eventually, if you're for something else, and he will test this, eventually will drop you also, because you're for something else. You just think you're in for freedom. This inner guidance, if you don't have all of these uh, predispositions, it will not come. And if it comes, and if you don't comply with what is telling you, then it will just disappear. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And it's very difficult to come back. So no matter how sincere you are, and for a seeker of truth, sincerity has to be there, or else what's the point? Guidance has to be there, or else. So guidance, by being there, it will not be there to support your undertakings. Hmm? It will be there to break it. Inner guidance does this much more intensely, because the seeker is also much more mature, is more ready for it. So it will not be unbearable. It will seem unbearable, but it will not be unbearable. But you will only see it by going through it. See, it will not be there to tap you on the shoulder, say, "Oh no, just keep your life." This is the part of the teacher. See, the teacher does these things. The teacher teaches you about liberation, teaches you about yoga, meditation, and all spiritual practices. This is the teacher. He is doing also his path and is sharing a little bit. So this is his part. The master doesn't do this. The master comes to see if things are in the right place, if you have worked, if you have gained maturity, if you're ready for things to begin. See? So this cycle of life after life, and this is preparation for the arrival of guidance. And when guidance comes, well, you're being calling, so I'm here. So let's see what you have. Then it starts kicking your precious things, things you didn't even know they were so precious. And it starts kicking it so that it makes you free from them, from its afflictions, and you get more prepared for remaining and remaining and remaining. So if inner guidance and outer guidance, if they are not kicking your world, so you're playing something else. I know you like a lot of spiritual places because people are more nice and masters are more nice and all of this, but in the real world, things are a little bit different. Work first, smile later. And smile not because the personality is very happy with circumstances, but because divine intense life is bursting from inside of you. So this is the smile that the master brings, that guidance brings. But before that smile, a lot of tears have to flow, because delusions are the most precious thing to you. They sustain that identity the way you know it. And these will be the last things you want to drop. And guidance comes to test you, to test your sincerity, to test in levels that you wouldn't be able to do it by yourself because of what I've explained before. And if you're not ready, then you go back to where you were and you continue from where you left previously. Hmm? But know that the presence of guidance, innerly or outside, it is intense, very intense, and it is there to test your sincerity and to rip apart what you call your precious world, the reality that you live in, by taking all things that you give importance, everything, and that will be in levels that the majority have no idea of the intensity it goes. So this inner strength has to be there, has to be built. But even with this inner strength, it is surrender, the surrender that helps you in that final stage. Because no matter how strong you are, you will not be able with your strength, with that kind of strength. Because all these things have to be left behind. So the extinction of these vasanas comes in the same way, which I'm talking to you about guidance, and as the seeker is getting guidance, but if he is not, he can prepare himself for this by willingly understanding and removing himself from his own investments. To pinch his preferences, his sensibilities, all that he holds dear, to give a clear message. I am ready and I am willing for guidance. And nothing else matters to me in this world anymore. Just freedom. So he can do this, he can pinch his own world, his preferences, because he can see if he wants to see. He will see what he is feeding, what is still holding value, what he is keeping hidden. There's always an opportunity to increase the intensity of your work or decrease it. So the next question was how uh, to completely extinguish these vasanas. It is to stop feeding this I, this my needs, my preferences. Stop feeding this completely. There is a limit for this, as I explained. Uh, if you have doubts, if you don't agree, disagree, okay, fine. Put the questions. Let's see them together. Everything can be explained. And the absolute explanation, it is you who decides. As guidance is not there and surrender is not there, so it is you that decide. So this is the problem, you see. Everybody has seen, because those who are in these spiritual environments, surely you have seen and recognized how someone is using a spiritual teaching as a means only to justify his own delusion, the place where he's at, and the things that he is, they are precious for him. Everybody has seen this, and this is normal. It is what is left, as there's no possibility for nothing else yet. So even with the the master giving guidance, uh, this game continues. Inner guidance, it doesn't, because or you go through it or it disappears. The outer master is a little bit in between. So without this surrender, it's not the thing yet, because even if the master is saying something and you're doing it, if you're choosing to do it, so this is not following guidance, this is following your own reasoning. So this is why big tests, intense tests have to be there to test where is it coming from. So things sometimes they seem that they don't have a logic, but they do. They have a logic, and the logic is to break your will, to make it simple, hmm, so that it can dissolve those vasanas. So these spiritual experiences, either they are mind fabrications or blessings. Mind fabrications don't really count on this one. So blessings are there to show you the direction you need to move. It's not something that you hold, then you tell your friends and everybody. The more you speak about it, the less power becomes, the more power it loses, becomes weaker and weaker, because these blessings, they have spiritual energy. So if you're using it to make yourself important in front of other seekers, then you're wasting these blessings and they will not flourish. Hmm? So this points the way. If other things are still there, the importances connecting to the world. So in a very twisted way, this quest is still being used by this character, this illusory character. So for the illusory character are these mundane undertakings. And this comes in a mechanical way, promising happiness. They have no life of its own. They will touch no life of its own. And everything is just a matter of time until you realize what is the purpose of life. Okay, so I will wait a few minutes to see if there's any questions about this, and then we'll end. Next satsang will be Thursday. 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 Just going and going and going, it's not very useful. You see, if there is not this questioning of the direction that you're taking, because mind is always diverting, always diverting, always diverting. If the mind is what is guiding your path, then you're under its um, domain, you're under its how do you say this, under its power, under its rule. Hmm? And doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just into preservation. The only part that the mind has to play in this is to listen to guidance. Before, to prepare itself for guidance, then it is to listen to guidance. Mind is an instrument only. You see a hammer? It is an instrument that you can use to smash things, to put a nail or something. Does the hammer thinks about what it's going to do? It's just an instrument. So this is mind. You have to understand what are the priorities, and it is over. Then it is use it directed where guidance is telling you to. So is what you call guidance there helping you to make your world a little better, to improve relationships, to improve the world or whatever? Or is guidance behaving like an angry lion, taking parts out of you, like an enemy would, for example? Maybe a little dramatic, but sometimes not really that dramatic. It goes to that intensity. Okay, so whenever you see this satsang, if there are questions about this subject or any other subject, you can send your questions whenever you feel like it. And I will answer them as I receive them by order of arrival. And when I'm responding to your question, I will, if you're sent through here, I can tell you that I'm answering, and you can make more questions on top of these ones, and I will continue answering your questions.